Hey guys, this is Turok, and today I wanted to talk a bit about the movie Encanto. And something that had been bothering me a bit with the film regarding Dorothea, and how she told us at the end that she knew all along that Bruno was there. And it's really bugged me as I've rewatched it each time, and I saw too how she gave out these little clues to Mirabel, and I wondered why she had to talk like this and such, and why she just didn't tell anyone else. And to do this, I want to do a little backstory first. We have 10 years ago, we have Bruno decides to disappear, and he does it on the night that Mirabel doesn't get a gift, and Abuela has asked him to look in the future and see what this might mean. And he sees this vision. And by the way, it was very interesting to note with this too that everyone thinks his visions are very concrete, but the opposite is also possibly true in this film. We had the priest, the merchant, and the woman with the fish. They all had their vision. Had visions by Bruno that came true, and but on the other hand, Mirabel's, most importantly, and as well as what Dorothea had a vision of, to not turn out to be true, or it was always possible they would be true, because Mariano almost got married with Isabella, engaged at this point, and Mirabel's actions with a conflict with Abuela did end up causing the cracks to eventually crumble the casita, but they did not necessarily have to happen like that, and Abuela and Mirabel did resolve their stuff, and so that was like a repairable outcome to what Bruno saw. But no one else really thinks about this. And so Bruno has decides at this point, after years of this, I was going to use persecution, but he's been stigmatized, perhaps to say, by everyone about how his visions have such bad outcomes, especially by his sister, it seems, Peppa, who it doesn't seem she hates him, but she's very emotional in certain ways that can cause problems, and Bruno unintentionally caused her wedding to not go as planned, and apparently that was also part of that reason. I saw at least from someone in the comment section of a video, was because the cloudy day, the rain coming out of wedding day, it's supposed to be bad luck, that marriage won't last, and that may have been why Pepe was so upset that this also happened on her wedding day, obviously with Felix, this man she's in love with. So she was pretty upset, for good reason, you could say, for understandable reason, with Bruno for that. So Bruno's got this stigma around him for always having very negative outcomes of his prophecies, and he's worried about what this will mean for Mirabel's future, and decides to leave. So at this point, with the family, as much as they, I wouldn't say all of them, but some of them are not keen on his powers and how it doesn't help the family, especially, I would say, Abuela and Pepe. I don't think Julieta or Augustine, her husband, or Felix, Peppa's husband, would care as much. They would still, I'd say, as a family, and conduct a search for Bruno after he disappears and he's not coming around. And this is my first thought with what Dorothea comes into play with her mentioning she knew, and it's like she can find people rather easily, right, if they're talking, and she has this gift of super hearing, and she's had it for, but at the point when Bruno disappeared, she would have had it for 6 years, because according to the wiki, she's 21 at the present point of the story. So 10 years ago, she's 11, and even if her gift has been perhaps refined as well, Bruno, as we've seen, was not that far away at all from them. You know, right there in the casita. So this is where the crux of my thoughts come together, in that I think that why didn't Dorothea say anything? Well, I believe she did. And this is the various outcomes here I was going over as I was preparing to make this video. And so I believe she did tell the family. And at first my thoughts were that the family just didn't want to deal with Bruno anymore. That they'd become fed up with his visions. And this thought came to me because in the song We Don't Talk About Bruno, she had that part about the family, Borla and the family fumbling over the prophecies they couldn't understand. So this had me thinking perhaps they didn't want him around anymore, and they were happy to just let him go into self-imposed exile, as close as it was. And as for Dorothea not talking about it, it would seem to me they would probably just say, we don't care, we want you to stop talking about it, and please, like, let's just let this sleeping dogs lie, because he's bad luck. That's what I'm getting at. It feels to me like some of the family really felt like he was bad luck, much as Mirabel seemed to start becoming this way later on, where she was causing nothing but trouble too. And if he was there and out of sight, it would be like out of sight, out of mind. Now, I'm not really set on this one because it feels a little too, I say, dark for a Disney film. It just seems to me they wouldn't want to. I can't see Abuela or Pepe being that harsh. Well, I almost did with Peppa because she's more emotional and I think she's really angry. And I still feel like this kind of was partially true with her, where she's like fed up and didn't want to think about him. But my other theory comes down to the fact that maybe they just didn't believe Dorothea about what she was hearing. That somehow her telling these secrets all the time, telling people things, that she may have, as a child, had been stigmatized as being someone who kind of cried wolf, I want to say, and they didn't believe her. Most of them, especially Abuela, because she did. And furthermore, with this, given a clue that Luis says later about hearing the adults talk about a vision, I think Abuela at this point may have been afraid, in a sense, afraid of them finding out about what she asked Bruno and didn't want the vision found out about. Because later on, Luisa says that I heard the adults talk about a vision. And it's just, perhaps the adults, when they say the adults, they must have meant, I assume mostly Pepe, Julieta, their husbands, and perhaps even Abuela. Perhaps they all talked about it there too and decided if it was true that then that they didn't she didn't want them to know what this vision might mean. She was worried it would create more bad luck for the family. And the other thought in that, though, my main thought in this is that perhaps Abuela didn't say nothing at all about that, and Dorothea is the one that tells her parents, hey, there was some vision, like she probably was overhearing Bruno talking about this in Beyond the Walls. Bruno keeps talking about some terrible vision he's worried about, and I'm sure they must have had a discussion about this, and maybe, to me, wondering if Abuela is hiding something from them. And even with that, it still surprises me that they didn't go looking for Bruno there if Dorothea was indeed telling them. So to me, it seems that they didn't want to, especially Peppa didn't want to deal with him anymore because of her bad feelings, so to speak, over how he had ruined her wedding. But on the other hand, I want to look at Julieta for a second. Julieta here is also like the most motherly of the Madrigal. I'll never say the family name wrong. And furthermore, Bruno always talked about sneaking into the kitchen. I suspect Julieta must have started figuring out that some of the food in the kitchen is missing, because she seems to be the one who's in charge of the kitchen. Almost every time we see her and something else is going on, that she's there cooking. So if you're someone in the kitchen, you gotta have an inventory of what you have. And if Bruno was sneaking around as they showed in the song, I wasn't sure if that was supposed to be Camilo in the song sneaking around, or actually Bruno behind Dorothea and Mirabel and behind that one porch, that one part of their song together. If Bruno's sneaking around anyways and getting food, Julieta must have known at some point there. And I further think that she may have partly believed Dorothea about this, but didn't bring it up anymore because of Pepe's and Abuela's sour feelings toward him, and how his gift wasn't having a family, and he was like this bad luck. But she, as we've seen too, with how she wants to look out for her own daughter, who's also becoming stigmatized, she would care no matter what about her brother and other family members, no matter what they are like in this terms. And I could just see her helping Bruno have food, maybe making meals, leaving him out, not directly interacting with him, because I felt like she may have been kind of respecting his wishes to be in this exile, even though she didn't agree with it. And it may have been hard for her too if her abuela and the others wanted to forget about it and maybe almost, said let's not talk about it anymore. And you've seen how abuela's word is basically law there. But it doesn't mean Julieta in her own way can't act out and help. Much like Mirabel was told not to do anything, and she too is becoming rebellious because she knows it's the right thing to do. And so there's that. And now back to Dorothea. Dorothea, it seems some way Dorothea wanted to make sure someone found out about Bruno to an extent and find the truth. But she couldn't talk about it anymore for one reason or another, back to what I've said here in the past, previously. And so by the end here, it seemed like she was starting to want to leave clues. But she had to be very careful about it, especially with her mother, for sure. As we saw with Pepe when Mirabel wanted to inquire directly to her what a prophecy could mean, Pepe just immediately starts, and the weather's changing, and the hurricane looks like it's about to swoop in any second. And Dorothea is aware of this, and Felix too as well. But Dorothea then it looks like as if she needs to let this out, because back to the beginning, she's someone who likes to tell stuff, and she can't hold this in. And if she did just hold this in all these years, and I've seen others suggest it's just like bravo, but she at this point is holding it in so much that she has to say something without Pepe knowing, or perhaps Abuela too. And so we had these little clues. The rats in the wall was the first one I saw, and it was funny when I first heard it, because she doesn't speak to animals, but she can hear them. She can certainly hear rats and anything else around. Animal talking is at that point when she says that is now Antonio's gift, and so that to me it sounded like she was trying to say a code for something else for Bruno. And it wasn't the best one, really. But then later on, she tries an even more direct approach in the song by saying, I always hear him muttering, and I forgot the lyrics now. I had it here. In the walls. And so she's trying to say, I can hear him there. And at that point, too, she's trying to reveal to Mirabel that the others were also flustered about him. And this too led me to the past part that the others may have already known, and they were so flustered by all the things he's in the past that they just didn't talk about him anymore. But knew that she wanted to get this out. Side note, back to the Dorothea bringing up the rats on the wall. I realized after discussing this a moment ago that perhaps the rats that evening before, right after Antonio's gift was granted, given to him, that he must have heard, that he may have heard something about the rats. Talking to, the rats probably were talking to Antonio there, and Dorothea, hearing everything, probably overheard the conversation, and Antonio talking to the rats and saying, like, what do you mean that magic is dying and such? So that perhaps there, she wanted to too, though, get that out to Mirabel and tell her, since she was Mirabel's on this mission to find what's going on. And lastly, though, I want to discuss how it's funny to me that after all this, Dorothea decided to crack at the dinner of of Isabel and Mariano, and bring out what was happening. It really seems to me at that point that she had finally got so afraid about what Bruno's meaning was that she had to tell the others, because she was just scared of the stigma that about how Bruno always, his visions were always true. Though I don't fault her for this, because she just been in this family for so long that didn't want to talk about Bruno, specifically with her mother itself being the most aggravated with him. And by the way, too, of Felix, it seemed to me too he had been holding back saying anything about it right at the beginning of up until the beginning of the Bruno song, and was trying to say something there too, which further made me think Dorothea could have been like forced to not say anything as well, but from perhaps her mother. And well, that's about covers all of it. I really think that most of the family, the adults, knew about Bruno and either didn't want to believe it or wanted to forget about him because of the trouble he had caused, with the exception of Julieta, really. Most of all, I should say. It was possible she didn't believe it, but I'm not convinced of that. And Dorothea too, who could hear him all the time, and she's someone who talks about this stuff to everyone. So you tell me what you think. Perhaps I'm way off on some of this stuff, but I just wanted to get it out there to get it off my chest.